This is the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast.
Oh no! We suck again!
I'm getting confused. What game are you calling?
I'm calling both games.
It is caught by Kelsey! Touchdown! Kansas City!
I need 3 of those things, baby. We ain't done yet. We ain't done yet. You like that? You like that? I like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast, episode number 137. I am Ruckus, always causing a ruckus.
And I'm Ruckus and The Menace.
And this episode, we'll be doing our color commentary, our good, bad, and the ugly. Sorry, I'm scrambled a little bit there. Our high heat, where it's between the AL and NL West, not West. Sorry, Spanish. That was a little joke from earlier. And then our color commentary consists of the NFL free agency day one. It's been crazy so far. If you're not catching up, we'll talk about it here in a little bit. And then, and then we'll go to our sudden dud of the week. Spanish, how are you doing?
Oh, it has been a heck of a weekend. I think the biggest thing, and I will open this off with the transaction log of, I returned to my alma mater of Shepherd University for the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference Championship weekend. And trust me, it's like both days, it felt like a homecoming every time. And like, have you ever remember the Fast and Furious movies where you feel like you after like a good amount of time away, you get like a good notable bunch of people back, and it feels like a family reunion, just like the Dom Toretto type ordeals.
Yeah,
this was exactly that. I got to
like you just feel like you belong, but like a higher dopamine rush than that, even.
Oh, I mean, I ran into quite a few athletes I covered, and I've had a notable working type relationship with Coach Justin Namlick over there. And I have been very, very happy with how, because when I was a freshman there, he was the interim head coach of the basketball team. Overtime that freshman year, they got the interim tag removed on him. He became the head coach. And some of the guys that I got to see out there, some special shout outs to some of those guys. Saturday, I ran into my guy Stin and Brant, Austin Cunningham and Brant Osborne out there, who were athletes I covered, and their wives and children, and ran into Coach Sid out there, Sid McCray. Got to tell Coach Namlick, Coach Justin Namlick, about kind of how proud I am of like kind of seeing how he's progressing, especially bringing a culture where you guys come back, and it always feels like a blessing to be just. Even from the journalistic side and being an alum of the school, it's like I feel like I've been just a very small part of the journey. And no matter how far away I go, it's like every time I come back, it feels like home. And the Butcher Center has felt that way every time I step back. And I couldn't be any happier about it. And I gotta give some special shout outs to my guys that I got to see this past weekend, because it's like I could go years without seeing them, or a good amount of time without seeing them, and you feel like you don't lose a step. You feel like you don't lose a step in being around them and enjoying the game and enjoying the game alongside, because I go out there, it's like you never know who's coming in. But every time, it's like Sid came all the way up from Richmond. Stin and his wife Jordana came all the way out from Ohio. So you're getting guys traveling hours away. Cam Stevens, who was a player there and local guy, he drove all the way out from Chattanooga to home because he was working on something out there. He drove all the way out from Chattanooga for this weekend. That is the culture I'm talking about. Like, hours away, it does not matter. If an opportunity to come down and support comes, and these guys take it. Like, these guys take it because they always enjoy running into it, like being around each other, and also the culture comes about. That's why I always feel excited for whenever I get an opportunity to come back, because I'll sit amongst all of my alumni out there, because it's all in that one corner. Because a lot of us are all in that one corner.
Yeah.
And of course, women's basketball alum Alex Temez out there, and from my time out there as well. So it just has that. It really is a homecoming and a family reunion every time I step back out near the basketball floor. And basketball has kind of become a lot less of a sport that I end up going to like a lot anymore, just because it's not Sarah's jam.
I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag. You either are into it because of the more fast-paced action when it comes to later in the game rather than in the middle of it, because I can see how basketball can get boring.
College basketball is one of the, I'll even say college and high school hoops are some of the, like, they are ones that if you are out there, the culture is worth it.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing presses, you're seeing traps, everyone will be all in on the NBA and talking LeBron James and stuff like that. But no, college basketball is the real hub of where good basketball that they actually will care about playing defense, care about hustle, care about all the little things. It's not like, I mean, college football also has that same core, but college football is feeling more like pro football these days. Baseball is baseball no matter what way you slice it, because the game remains the same. It's just the amount of skill and experience that come about it are different no matter which level you go to.
Yeah.
But basketball is one of those things where it's like, honestly, high school and college are truly the real wheelhouses of where basketball enjoyment is. But now that we've gotten through that, I think we can go right into some channel housekeeping, unless you want to talk some of your baseball endeavors from yesterday.
I mean, nothing really that exciting. I struck out some people as catcher, and now my shoulders are sore. It went from legs killing me to shoulders. But other than that, I've been just kind of chilling as far as the weekend goes. I've been slowly getting through Monster Hunter Wilds, and been playing a little bit of Spider-Man here and there. Other than that, it's just
resting. Disc golf game is getting better. And I'm getting a little better with my disc golf game. I went out there in some heavy winds this weekend, and actually I shot under 100, so my score was not hopeless. I don't have a hopeless disc golf game.
Over at where I played baseball, the field over there, it's a big disc golf arena, and or really just a course in general, but there was like a big global event that was happening, and like all the parking was pretty much taken by disc golf people. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It was just like, dang, this is hectic. I didn't know this was that big.
Dude, if you actually get out there and enjoy, like, somebody's got some discs and you borrow some and you kind of get out there and do it. Honestly, if you get like a pretty decent if you've got a decent beginner friendly course in your area, take advantage and enjoy it, because it is actually quite nice. It's better going with people. I mean, I go out and I practice. I'm going out and I'm practicing over at a school that has a couple of holes that are out in the open, and I've just been practicing out in like an open field. But ultimately, ultimately where I've kind of been playing with friends, like we got a park, and most of the disc golf courses you go to, they're free. Most of them are free. It only costs a bit for some discs, and just getting discs you'll need. But other than that, if you find a park that's got one, the courses are free. So most of them are free. So that's
it's just Farlow Park, for the most part. Yeah. So do we want to address the elephant in the room?
Well, let's get into some housekeeping. MLB The Show content. Yep. Still there. I have narrowed down my final field to 4. And I have the Mariners, the Nationals, the Cardinals, and the Giants. I'm leaning toward going National League this year, guys. So I think the Mariners could soon be out, but the Mariners are probably the one American League team that I think I still have some heart to try and do. But I'm leaning toward, my biggest leaning is toward the Cardinals. But the Mariners are probably the second spot I could possibly go with. Road to the Show content, entirely possible. And it will definitely have a different distribution of days of the week, as this will be our next major announcement. Thanks to some openings from our friends at Two Nerds in a Pod, who we would love to have more opportunities to collaborate with. We are changing recording and release times once again, y'all. Recordings will now be done on Tuesdays, so we will release on Wednesday. And this will be starting next week.
Yep.
This is also going to allow us more time outside of Sundays to prepare material for you guys. And I think what's going to be even better is giving you guys recaps on the Monday night game for our football recaps during the NFL season here next fall.
Yes, sir.
And I'm definitely excited about that, because what I'm leaning toward, I don't know if you're going to be doing an MTO next year, but I know that probably the day that I will end up setting mine will probably be MTO Mondays. And then I probably do Road to the Show Thursdays, and I was going to do Wednesdays and Saturdays, but it'll probably be now Thursdays and maybe more. I'll have to figure out the other day for Road to the Show. It might be Tuesdays and Fridays.
You might as well just do one episode a week.
Oh, I'm looking at 2 a week. I'm looking at 2 a week because the journey for Road to the Show is a little more. But yeah, if I have to do Road to the Show once a week, that's fine. But I know the journey through the minors is always a little long. Like, the journey through is always a little longer. So that's why I was thinking 2 a week for Road to the Show.
Yeah, I don't know what my plan is for MLB The Show. I'm thinking about picking it up, but I'm just not sure if I'm really wanting to right now, but we'll see. But yeah, this change for the dates is also perfect, because if I ever want to watch a Monday Night Football game, I don't have to feel bad for Spanish when they're on like, oh, I want to watch the game, and you're just like, okay, we could change recording to the next day, and it's like,
yeah. I think it opens us up. It opens us up a little more, and it actually gets us. It gets us back to that feel of actually planning while Monday Night Football is on.
Yeah,
like we're keeping up with Monday Night Football as we're planning.
I remember that one night that we were planning, and Damar Hamlin went down against Cincinnati, and I'm like, bro, can you like look at this really quick? And you're like, what's the big deal? It's just a dude on the field. I'm like, I think this guy almost died. And you're just like, oh.
Like, I didn't realize that. I will say that I did not realize. I don't think either of us knew the severity of it until after the fact. This game just stopped. This game just came to a stop.
My dad was really in the other room, and he was like, holy shit, I think that guy almost died. And I'm just like, Like, okay. Don't know the context of this, and then like a week later, it was just like nonstop reporting of, is this guy dead or not? And they're like, well, it looks like he's not dead. He's definitely in the hospital conscious. But anyways, are we ready for that good Eastwood segment there?
Let the tumbleweed roll.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yep. The good for this week. The biggest month in college hoops is here, baby.
Oh yeah, baby! You gotta do it in your best Dick Vitale impression.
Oh, yeah, baby! College basketball, March Madness, and Diaper Dandies. Cooper Flagg, the Diaper Dandy, winning the ACC Player of the Year.
Doesn't he do something kind of like this too, where it's like, or I don't know. That was like the Kermit going.
Okay. But yeah, it is championship week this week. Selection Sunday will be next week. We get a little bit of time and we get an extra day to kind of look at the brackets a little bit, because I think that was the biggest con about recording on Mondays.
Mm-hmm.
Is that whenever this time came around, it really didn't give us like a good full day to actually look at a bracket and see how we think it'll break down. So we get an extra day with Selection Sunday, which actually is pretty exciting. The not so good this week, and I love how I looked at when Ruckus just initially sent this to me.
Okay, I'm gonna go through the DMs because it's some strong language. It's adult strong language, and I was the main culprit of it. Damn it, not that. I'm just gonna show the chat. I don't give a crap.
Oh yeah, you looked at that and you were like, Worthy is arrested. And then I looked at you and I said, bro, what is it with the Chiefs and having wide receivers that end up in legal issues?
Alright, so...
Isn't this like the third or fourth time within the last 7 to 8 years that this has happened?
I said, God freaking dang it. I did not say freaking, but you can look at the screen if you're really curious.
I knew where you wrote that.
Worthy was arrested, FML, and then he said, bruh, is this a lot? Is it, how many times does this shit happen? And then I post the Mike meme from Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, and I said, turns out I think it was self-defense and maybe he gets off scot-free. And then, yeah, rest is history.
Yeah, I think it's like he's got actually something that may pass in court to kind of have some things go along. I still think it gets scrutinized by the personal conduct policy, but
I was so pissed when I originally saw it. I was like, is this gonna be the annual let's get suspended and see how long it takes for us to get back, and also how good our team is to like get full force?
You had Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt.
Had. Imagine this. Imagine a world where Tyreek. Imagine a world where
Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt, Rasheed Rice, and now Worthy. That's why I said this is like the fourth time in about the last 7 to 8 years that something like this has happened involving a Chiefs offensive player.
Imagine if Kareem Hunt actually stayed with the Chiefs for like 3 or 4 years. You know, I feel like the running back class at that time, the contracts would have been probably insane. Also, Tyreek Hill is like the Nick Cannon of the NFL. Like, my guy has like 8 baby mamas. And it's insane.
I mean, Nick Cannon got a bunch of them. But man, it's like, that is definitely nuts.
Yeah, I was pissed when I first saw the initial Worthy reactions, and then I was like, oh, well, that seemed justified. He was trying to tell his crazy fiance to get out of his house, and he gave her a notice, and then she was like, she ripped his dreads off for one, also destroyed his property. I think he's in the right to be like, yo, you need to cut this shit out.
Yeah, and you know what's bad? I had a certain issue involving an offensive player, like an NFL player having some personal conduct policy possibility issue on my bingo card. So it doesn't go into that wasn't on my bingo card, because that one I kind of expected it.
What about Tyreek Hill just in general? Like, I feel like he hasn't had that happen yet. I feel like he just waits till the regular season nowadays to really screw with people's minds.
Tyreek Hill. There is a bingo card slot that always ends up coming around for Tyreek Hill being Tyreek Hill.
Are you sure it's not just like the free space just in the middle?
Oh, I'm sure there's there are other things that very well could be used for that free space.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the Chiefs getting a favorable call from the refs.
Oh, and the funny thing about Tyreek Hill, and yes, I got your stupid reference, how dare you. The refs didn't rig the games, and neither did we, just so we could get the record straight. And if it comes out, I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna feel like an Astros fan back in 2017. At least we didn't hit trash cans, god damn it. We were good enough to actually do something. Anyways, what I was originally gonna say was, put them with Tyreek. I mean, at least he is now doing he's like causing shenanigans like during the season rather than during the off season, because when we had him, he had like allegations of abuse and some other crap later on. But either way, speaking of uglies, what is ugly this week?
The ugly just was broke earlier today that Yankees ace Garrett Cole will be undergoing Tommy John surgery and is out for the season. As a Red Sox fan, this is a sigh of relief.
Honestly, he hasn't been like the same since he was an Astro. I feel like as a Yankee, he's been okay, but like,
I will say this: Pirates Cole was the rise of a dominator. Astros Cole was the most dominant pitcher in the major leagues for a while. Yankees Cole, he's had some dominance, but now we're starting to see the dents in the armor.
Kind of like with Rodon too. Carlos Rodon.
Yeah. Carlos Rodon was.
He was broken, and then he was broken, and then became good, and then he signed with the Giants, was still good, and then played with the Yankees, and then
it's like it's not necessarily the Yankees are a place where pitchers go to die, but the Yankees are a place where pitchers kind of have their bearings a little thrown off. But even though now we go into baseball, we now will move into the high heat, where we will move across the country and talk about the Western divisions. And Ruckus, you can go ahead and start with the AL West.
I was trying to do like the heat, like I'm burning, like waving myself some air to cool off, but I ended up doing the Mahomes. But anyways, AL West time. So I'm doing this like I did last week with the standings. So the Astros were number 1. Shocker to nobody. But if you paid attention during the beginning of the season, the Astros seems like they were lost in the sauce. Their bullpen wasn't doing great. Presley and Hader, which, by the way, Hader was a free agency acquisition last year for the Astros. Kind of did okay. Like, he wasn't himself like the Brewers or when he was with the Padres. But regardless, you managed to squeak by in the division anyways, but get squished by the Tigers of all teams.
Yeah, and the Astros, I don't think have a very top tier farm system right now. Like
Well,
their
yeah.
like a lot of their top prospects are kind of further down the road. So it is. I think that they can hang on because they kind of kept themselves somewhat alive in a stretch of fashion because you still do have Jose Altuve, who they are actually trying out in left field this season. You have Brian Abreu in your bullpen. You've got Luis Garcia in the rotation along with Framber Valdez and McCullers.
What about Yusei Kikuchi, or is he a Tiger now?
Yusei Kikuchi.
Because I thought he was.
I think he's a Tiger now.
Maybe I
But
was thinking it was a trade acquisition later on that got to the Astros.
The big pieces that they definitely have in their core would be like Jeremy Pena at short, Isaac Paredes at third.
Yeah, because he got traded.
Christian Walker at first.
That feels kind of weird having Christian Walker at first. I mean, as an Astro in general.
Well, consider that they picked him up in free agency, and the Diamondbacks, who we'll talk about later, ending up getting a notable first baseman from the Guardians.
Yeah.
From the Guardians, it makes sense, but they're going to be trying. But this is a weird lineup for Houston where they have no Bregman. They lost a lot of their key players that they had for major pieces of it. And they still got a bunch of young talent. So, I mean, they got Chaz McCormick, Yordan Alvarez, but Yordan's going to be the DH.
Wouldn't they want Altuve to be like a right fielder or like a center fielder rather than a left fielder? I feel like the height difference is pretty intimidating for Altuve.
For the wall, yeah, but at the same time, you got Chaz McCormick, who's probably going to play center with his speed. And then you have Jose Altuve, who probably more so. That left field is a major short porch at Minute Maid. No pun intended, because Jose Altuve is a short dude.
Well,
at 5'6".
That's part of why I made the joke, but at the same time, I was like, man, that's kind of shitty for the Astros to pull that kind of thing. But it is what it is.
But it's also an arm strength thing, so he doesn't have as far to throw throw the baseball at the plate. So they're trying him out. I think they're experimenting with it, but I don't know how long it is going to truly be there, if that makes sense.
And then my summary for the Mariners for second place was bad luck and bad timing, I guess. I mean, it was pretty obvious because the Tigers kind of took charge.
I think you're doing a little more season. I think you're doing a little more season in review from last year instead of actually really looking ahead.
Because I think I'll see it when I believe it. That's my approach to this. Is more just critique.
I'm talking like how you're kind of going about the preview side of it right now. Is that you're kind of looking. You're not really looking like at the roster and seeing where they're kind of going ahead, where they're looking at going forward.
Yeah,
but the Mariners. The biggest thing about the Mariners is that they have a really good five-man front. They have a really good rotation. Castillo, Gilbert, Kirby. Looks like Bryce Miller's in that rotation. So they've got a good rotation. Cal Raleigh behind the plate. It's the lineup around the pitching that's kind of the break point.
But I could also argue that their pitching was not enough to get them over the hump. So it's like,
that's why I said.
But that's
baseball is truly
saying bad timing, because also like Cal Raleigh, they could have gone somewhere else with that. They could have used their talents or traded to get some finer pieces to get more into it rather than where they are now. Because right now they're just kind of sitting ducks.
Baseball is one of those sports where you can have a good mix of younger guys and older guys, and you can have a good core. The Mariners look like, in theory, where most of the players on the team are roughly around that age of 24 to 29. You got some young bucks there that look like they can play. So if they can get it to gel and click on all cylinders and get out to a really good start or dominate somewhere in the middle of the season, the Mariners could be a contender.
So, me saying bad luck and bad timing, I guess, I feel like is pretty accurate.
You're talking more of what last year was.
Right.
You're looking more at what last year was.
We don't know the future right now. And I feel like their future is like it'll be there, but we'll just have to see what happens. I'm just being more optimistic, but also being real with the situation that presents to me with the Mariners in my head. Anyways, number 3, the Rangers. Their injuries and more injuries at bad times really cost them last season, but I think this season they can bounce back. But you still have to, Corey Seager still has to show why he's a Ranger. Josh Jung is a Detroit Tiger, and that's a younger brother. Simeon also has to perform, and you have a few others that need to take the cake. Show me that last season wasn't a fluke, and we'll talk. And then the Oakland A's, well, the only exciting thing is that they're going to be in Sacramento, California to play their games rather than the shithole that was the Oakland Coliseum now.
Let me stop you for a second here. The Rangers look, on paper, they look stacked.
When they weren't hurt.
Because, that's... Note the key word I said there. On paper. On paper, you've got Josh Young entering the prime. Corey Seager's 30. Simeon at 34 is definitely on the older side for a second baseman, but they look like they've got depth. They have depth in the infield. Especially, and even some versatility to have some of those infielders even move to the outfield if they need to. They've got Evan Carter, who's quick and young. Adolis Garcia, who's quick and can hit and can rake. Wyatt Langford, quick, young. They have pieces. If they can kind of keep themselves health-wise in good integrity, they're a force. They are a force to be reckoned with. And I think also a big key is going to be having key pitchers break out, like Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker. If both of them break out, both of them start breaking out, and they crack the rotation with a healthy DeGrom and a working Nathan Eovaldi, they're going to be really good. They are going to be really good.
Dude, your internet kind of cut out for a second, and the sheesh sheesh it was more intense because of the fact that it was disoriented. And also, can we address another elephant in the room with the random flash of my room going black to back? I saw that and I was like, oh no, what's going on with the podcast? And I was like, oh, we're good. I think my AC just started kicking in. It's been months, so I decided to turn it on today. But anyways, yeah, I get where you're coming from.
The A's, their biggest positive is that they are this team is young. They look entertained. This looks like a good young team that level the sleep. They could be a sleeper if they really get going.
Yeah.
That is my take on the A's. They actually have dropped Oakland for now. They're just Athletics because they're stuck in limbo between Oakland and Las Vegas.
Just like Spence said, they're stuck in A. Anyways, alright, so my last one is the Angels. So, here's the bottom line. It kind of feels like a Christopher Walken meme from, like, SNL, whenever he's, like, doing, like, those infomercials where he's trying to, like, pick up ladies or try to be, like, the fashionista or whatever. But here's my Walken impression. What did you expect? Artie Moreno, he's kind of an ass. Like, it almost turns into like a Sopranos kind of thing. But yeah, the Angels have been cursed, and it's been a while. And Trout being having like the tail end of his career now, it's not a good sign. But it wasn't a good sign when Ohtani left either. But
his mega contract, in plain English, that was a kiss of death. That was a kiss of death.
Yep. And now the Angels are deferred from this conversation.
Well, but I can look at this roster right now with the Angels, and if certain players do well, it could work. It can work. Yusei Kikuchi is now an Angel. But you've got Kyle Hendricks. If that works out, it'll turn out okay. Reed Detmers, if he eventually pans out to the prospect they brought in, he'll work. Darno is there catching now, so that's a mentor with experience for them. Then you have really Joe Adell, Mickey Moniak, Mike Trout. Like, there's depth in the outfield, and certain players can come, and they can always kind of move some things around as they need to. I think Ron Washington could have a decent squad, but it's really heavily rested on whether or not Mike Trout can sustain the health. But if he can't, it's who is going to be effective in stepping up to really fill the gigantic void that Mike Trout brings, talent-wise.
Yep. All right. Spennis, what do you got?
All right. Now we are going to the NL preview. The NL West, and I am starting with the San Francisco Giants. This roster is full of some sleepers. Like, this is a sleeper-filled roster full of some pieces that are very... Like, there's some enticing pieces. Camilo Doval, Jordan Hicks, Tyler Rogers. Verlander is going to mentor that rotation. Logan Webb. Like, there are mentorship. Robbie Ray. You've got veterans in the rotation that can mentor the bullpen. Sam Huff is probably going to be the top catcher. Willie Adames coming over in free agency, and then you've got Matt Chapman there at third. Wilmer Flores will probably play first along with Lamonte Wade Jr. So ultimately it's going to come down to really who will effectively play second base as far as the infield. And then you got Elliot Ramos, who is the top tier center fielder. Yaz and Wright. So they're kind of like a really solid, like, right and left fielder away from truly saying this is definitely a deep run team that could play a good spoiler. but they'll have Bryce Eldridge potentially come up next year to be a first baseman for them. If he can get his prospect trajectory accelerated enough, that could really send the Giants going places if he pans out. But the Giants do not have another player in the top 100 other than Eldridge. And that could be a missing piece down the line as early. They're projecting him next year, but if he can somehow accelerate and force an issue in AAA, oh man, the Giants are nuts. The Giants are nuts, and they can set a table for being competitive in the wild card race. The Dodgers. In short, New York Yankees West. They basically have built a solid roster from where it is. Roki Sasaki, him coming in, he's the number one prospect, and all the other pieces. This team is stacked. They're loaded. You still have Mookie Betts. You still have Freddie Freeman. You still have Tyler Glasnow. You still have Kershaw. You still got a lot. And by a lot, I mean
Yep.
Yeah, Glasnow, Gonsolin, Brusdar Gratterall, Dustin May, Bobby Miller, Blake Snellzilla's there now, Tanner Scott, Evan Phillips, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Kirby Yates.
They could have had Jack Flaherty too, but he decided to go back to the team that traded him to the Dodgers and the Tigers. But I thought it was kind of odd. It's like you had the guaranteed spot with the Dodgers in a sense, but I'll just why?
The key here is going to be who plays second base for the Dodgers, because Gavin Lux is elsewhere. Probably Max Muncy may end up being the person over there. And then in the outfield, of course, you got Michael.
Where did Gavin go?
Gavin Lux? I think he was on a division team that I think we spoke about already. Gavin Lux, he was the Reds. He's a Red now.
Did he get traded over there? And I just forgot.
I think he might have. I think we might have gotten sent. Yeah, I think he got sent over, but I didn't expect. I wasn't thinking Lux was going to be super key, so I didn't necessarily key in on him. But the Dodgers have so many pieces that they can go to for just about every solution to it. This team is loaded. And I think they are prime contenders to get back into a deep postseason run. The next team we're talking about here are the San Diego Padres. This team is full of players that are household names with a lot of hype. If you are talking to your non-versed, filthy casual baseball fan, they're gonna, filthy casuals, they'll know who Fernando Tatis Jr. is. Because he's flashy. Manny Machado, he's flashy. There's a lot of flash. But if some of these players can develop some sound things, the Padres could become a team that very well could play spoiler to the Dodgers getting back to the World Series. Stay healthy, play effectively, live up to the hype and expectation, and they may be able to go places.
I think the health and the luck factors in with it, because
Oh yeah.
Years ago, they had a good roster. They had Hosmer, you had Machado, you had Profar, and all those guys. Man,
Yeah.
imagine like a
Yeah,
year later they had Profar go off. Like, I don't know. It feels more like a showman team rather than anything else. Like when they had
oh, yeah, it's a show.
Juan Soto was like in a almost sophomore slump. It felt of just
Yeah,
production.
but I think he was also a hype. But he was also a player full of hype. They don't have him anymore, but
Still is a player pipe. But here we are.
yeah. Oh yeah, I fully agree on that. The next one I'm going to are the Diamondbacks. And picking up another ace to go with Zach Gallen was a smart move for the Diamondbacks. You pick up another ace, he's solid. You pivot from Christian Walker to Josh Naylor. Naylor's going to have a little more of a left-handed bat with some more pop. I think that's a win-win in terms of the exchange, because I think Chase Field favors left-handed bats more than it does right-handed bats, and Minute Maid Park favors right-handed bats more than it does left-handed bats. So you kind of win in that regard. Ketel Marte is still the core. Still the core there amongst the infield. You know, Eugenio Suarez at third. Ketel will probably play second, maybe some outfield in certain situations. Corbin Carroll is Corbin Carroll. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Grichuk. They've got guys. It's just a matter of having it all come together. And the Snakes could very well get good opportunity, and they've got some bite. And last but not least, the Colorado Rockies.
Correction.
There's not a lot.
Correction.
What?
A Charlie Blackmon-less Colorado Rockies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a Charlie Blackmon-less Colorado Rockies. But the leaders of the headliners of this Colorado Rockies roster is basically Ryan McMahon and Brenton Doyle. And they kind of headlined this, and dare I say it, this team is the island of misfit toys. Yes, I did just say that. If Zach Dean can make his way up, and then you get guys like Chase Dollander later on that can make some noise. Charlie Condon coming up next year. So they've got some little pieces they can build around. But yes, this hodgepodge of players on the Colorado Rockies is the island of misfit toys. I expect Brenton Doyle to win another Gold Glove, but he is probably the best piece out of this band of misfits. Improvements will be minimal. But dang it, you knew I had to put some sort of Christmas reference, not really a Christmas reference, but some cold reference in there.
Yeah.
To go along with
I hear you.
To go along with the Rocky Mountains. Simple as that. And now we can move on to the color commentary, where it is free agent frenzy. It's like as if throughout this entire stretch, the entire NFL has decided, hey, I'm gonna wake up and choose Cleveland. Oh wait, they do that anyway.
Especially Worthy.
That that was a little bit of low hanging fruit. Not worthy of the joke.
I'm just causing a ruckus. That's my job.
It still was not worthy of the joke. But last week was kind of. This past week was kind of the last major week for cap cutting releases. And there were some notables that got hit. Grady Jarrett, who found a new team. He's going to the Bears.
Here's my YouTube thumbnail where I just go.
Oh, no. Jonathan Allen. Yes, my Commanders decided to let him go. Devontae Adams, who found a new team. He will be going to the Los Angeles Rams to become the number 2 wide receiver to Puka Nacua. Darius Slay. Evan Ingram. Von Miller. Joey Bosa. Tyler Lockett. And by Wednesday, if they do not find a trade for him, the Rams will be letting go of Cooper Kupp.
Red Solo Cup. He might be gone. Let's have a party. That's the LA Rams right now. I thought
but the notable.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, where were you go? I thought you would stop me. I thought you were going to stop me from going. So that's why
I was thinking about another player that you probably haven't talked about yet, which is someone later. That is now in the Rams.
But notable trades throughout this stretch. Granted, minus the Joe Tooney to the Bears and Deebo Samuel to the Commanders that we've already spoken on. Christian Kirk will be going from a team in the AFC South to a team in the AFC South. As he will now go to the Houston Texans. And I think this is a more complimentary receiver than Stephon Diggs ever was in Houston.
Well, I dig it.
Why? Why do I say this? Because you now can have Nico Collins and, Lord willing, a healthy Tank Dell on the opposite side and run Christian Kirk in the middle as a slot receiver. And even though Diggs was kind of there in the slot, Kirk is not necessarily the most ball-demanding wide receiver in the league. And DK Metcalf will join George Pickens as a Pittsburgh Steeler. But they don't have a quarterback. All of these wide receivers and an offensive coordinator who won't end up getting a quarterback, leading a quarterback to be able to throw the ball to them. You catch on to where I'm going here, right?
Mm-hmm.
The offensive coordinator is Artie Smith.
That mustache is gone before his actual job is gone.
But, again, DK Metcalf goes to Pittsburgh, where I say all these wide receivers and not a single person that could get, not a single person to get him the ball. Geno Smith goes from Seattle to Las Vegas. Do the Raiders still look at a quarterback in the draft?
I mean, you could, but maybe they're trying to go for the Mahomes approach where they give them a year or couple to adjust. But I don't know how much Geno Smith has left in the tank, to be honest with you. I think it's good for the Raiders so that they actually have a decent quarterback, because last year they had the Temu version of what was the the guy from Napoleon Dynamite that was trying to go pro or something, or he was like, "Oh,
I talking Uncle Rico?
Uncle Rico, yeah." Like he literally had the Uncle Rico Timu version of him, and like he lasted for a little bit, and it's gone. Happened.
Come on, for crying out loud! You had the Rams as a backup quarterback now have Stamos, but that's beside the point.
Well, you also have Pita still over with the Rams.
Yeah. And Laramie Tunsil is now coming to the Commanders in a trade. And this deal, I think, it's going to be a net upgrade at left tackle. But I'm hoping that they still figure out a way to develop Brandon Coleman. I don't think you discount him, but I think that Tunsil going over there is a better tackle for us on paper. Notable players on our teams that are staying put: Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz for the Commanders, and I am thankful that both of them are staying, because Bobby Wagner was definitely the leader of the District of Crunch with him and Frankie Louvu.
I was surprised to see how much Bobby had in the tank.
Oh, Bobby Wagner he's still getting he was still getting tackles. And still getting over 100 tackles, no less. So Bobby Wagner is a future Hall of Famer, but he's worth it. He's worth it. He's shown that he was worth it. Yeah. And Zach Ertz had a career resurgence with the Commanders, and I think Jaden Daniels really wanted him back. And the other piece of it is that we kept John Bates, too, which is our good blocker tight end. And he was kind of coming into his own. So I'm liking what I'm seeing with what Adam Peters has done so far. Granted that the defensive tackle that they got from the Jets in free agency might be a question mark, but especially for the value of which we got him, or for the price of which we got him, because we paid a little high, but that's a digression.
Yep.
But for you guys in Kansas City, it was Nick Bolton and Hollywood Brown. Woo. Which I think for Nick Bolton, that was solid for the Kansas City defensive core. Hollywood Brown, I think, is a wide receiver that ultimately really... It's like Kansas City could turn receivers. Is it bad that I kind of have to say that Andy Reid is kind of the best at having the island of misfit wide receivers and turning those wide receivers into something valuable?
I think you're thinking too hard into it. I think it depends on number one, the talent. Number two, how well they perform. And yes, in previous years, you had Byron Pringle, you had Sammy Watkins.
Corvette. You had a body on a Corvette.
Juju doesn't count because he played the season that we traded Tyreek Hill away, not knowing that it was actually going to happen, and we ended up winning the Super Bowl anyways. And then the year after that, we didn't have Juju. We had a bunch of shitty misfit quarterbacks. Or not quarterbacks, so wide receivers. You had MVS, which he was okay the season beforehand. You had Sky Moore, which I don't know why the F we drafted him in the first place. He's kind of a misfit.
Butterfingers Tony, who I think also caught a case.
Yeah, he caught a case of the screw up his life.
He caught a case of the drops at first, and then along with that, on top of his fumbling of the bag, wide receiver wise, he then was arrested He then was also arrested last month.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I said the biggest thing that he caught was a case.
Yeah. Other than that, like before that, you had the glorious Sammy Watkins, Byron Pringle. You had Tyreek Hill, which was a big pivotal piece. Like they weren't all misfits. Yes, Tyreek Hill had some off field issues. Byron Pringle, for the most part, just kind of digressed enough to where no one was really wanting to pick him up. And then you also had like other additions. Like MVS was good for like the first year, and then after that he just dove off into a cliff, and that's why we cut him.
Yeah.
But other than that, like you had for that.
But you get aging wide receivers like D-Hop.
D-Hop was okay.
Aging wide receivers like DeAndre Hopkins.
Then we realized that he probably wasn't the best for our team, but I think in general, like when it came to the Super Bowl, whenever he had that dropped catch, I think there was more things aligning that didn't align properly. Like we should have probably taken out Joe Tooney at left tackle and put him back at left guard where he belonged, and put like DJ Humphrey or someone else. It was just not happening at the time.
Oh yeah, it was just a cycle of things going wrong, but it's like, okay, but I'm still saying that my theory still kind of holds true, because it's like, oh, Hollywood Brown played for two different teams before making his way. I think Juju was amongst two different teams before making his way in Kansas City and finding a way to thrive.
I feel like the way Juju went was he had some stuff with his foot, but he was still able to manage that pain.
Yeah.
Hollywood had like a freak accident shoulder injury happen on the first play of the preseason, and ever since then he's been okay. But it was also crowded when it came to the postseason, just in general, but also there just wasn't much there, and he didn't have a lot of time to develop with Mahomes. Like, you could argue before the injury he had plenty of time with the practice, but it's a big difference between offense only and defense, and when it comes to playing your own defense, that can be kind of like like we know our own defense versus the defense of like a opposing team. And it could definitely be a change. As far as the Chiefs players that are now no longer with us, Tershawn Wharton is now a Panther. 3 years, $54 million. I didn't think that would happen. But good for him to get the bag, because before that, I think he was on like veteran minimum deals.
I mean, Philly lost a lot too. I think Milton Williams, went to New England. We'll mention Josh Sweat later, but we'll kind of stay on focus here and talking other notable players that were staying put. You got Chris Godwin staying in Tampa Bay, and I'm not gonna lie, I love this deal for the Bucs.
I think it's a good one for both sides too, because yes, he had that freak accident, kind of like not in the same context of like Tank Dell, but like pretty bad.
Yeah, it was a bad ankle injury. I think it was like a bad ankle injury.
Yeah, and then speaking of other people saying put Myles Garrett, I feel like that whole vibe of the situation was not good, and I don't like the fact that he got extension with the Browns, because I feel like he could have gone somewhere else where people actually wanted him and actually gotten the bag. I get wanting to stay because it's easier, but come on, dude. You were like a week ago, you were saying, I hate my life, I hate the Browns, I hate the organization, I want to get out, and then you sign a huge extension. You're like, you know what? Never mind. I'll be fine. It's like, dude.
It's
Learn
like
the signs.
it's here's where you're at here. It looks like as if the relationship status between the Cleveland Browns and Myles Garrett went from they were committed to it's complicated. And it shifted just like that. The Browns decided, hey, why don't we just pay him to simplify it, shut him up, get him back committed? That's what they did. And honestly, I don't know if it was the right decision, but they were not going to get a very good deal out of trading Myles Garrett. So they probably were left with no other choice.
I mean, the no other choice clause has really kicked their ass in the past 6 years. They had no other choice to let Baker Mayfield go and get Deshaun Watson. They had no other choice but let Deshaun Watson actually get hurt near the end of last season. As far as, like, they could have gone somewhere else besides Deshaun Watson with all the allegations.
Oh, yeah. Well, I
There's
mean,
just so many
it's
bad.
like-
There's just
Yeah,
so many
it's-
bad decisions from the Browns that it just compounded.
I'm not denying that the excuse sounds like a complete cop-out. But the problem more so becomes that the issue gets forced by the leveraging that either the players have had, or just kind of that the situation ends up being completely boned.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly what it is. But other notable players that are staying put being Ronnie Stanley, Darius Slayton, Khalil Mack, Zach Bond, which for Philly fans, that is definitely one of your A-plus moves. And of course, we mentioned it earlier, but it goes without saying. T. Higgins, who was franchise tagged for a second time. And they gotta get a deal done with him fast.
Well, first you gotta get Jamar Chase. There's been a lot of talk about Jamar Chase getting a bigger deal, whether it's like 40.1 million or it's just like, okay, we'll give you this deal.
Okay, Jamar Chase, yeah, that extension does need to happen sooner rather than later. But I think they also should iron out the T. Higgins deal either simultaneously, or think of it simultaneously, or shortly after, to be able to structure around being able to stay under the cap with what Jamar Chase is going to bring in.
What if T. Higgins gets
that
traded? Like, use the franchise tag and then trade him for some assets later? Because I feel like T. Higgins has been kind of an Achilles heel.
I think the tag, it depends on what tag they put on it. If they put an exclusive tag, they can't do that. If it's a transition tag, I think that loads up like that, but I'm not too sure how the second tag works. If it's just an exclusive tag the second time around. But even Burrow was saying it's like, we want, like the Bengals were going to say, we want to try and keep them both. But you're stuck in a situation where now you're there between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
But now we go into some notable players changing teams. And I think we can just simply go with, do we like it or do we dislike it?
Yep.
Sam Darnold going to Seattle.
I'm mixed because he had a great year in Minnesota, and I think they could have built off of that, but instead they decided to part ways. And I get it, like, you want to see how J.J. McCarthy does, but you could have a backup in Sam Darnold. Maybe the money wasn't there for Darnold and making an agreement with the Vikings, but come on, dude. Sam Darnold and the Seahawks, you just traded away DK Metcalf. You your
Tyler
veteran
Lockett.
your
Your
wide
number
out.
one wide receiver is Jackson Smith and Jigba now.
Yeah, which
I
didn't
think
really
that
fall.
Seattle.
He's been kind of a bust in my opinion. Like he doesn't do much, but you still gotta find some other weapons around him, and they really haven't done that. And they haven't done that for like the past few seasons because they were relying on DK Metcalf, they were relying on Tyler Lockett, and then they decided, okay, let's get Jackson Smith and Jigba, and
Well,
and
DK
now
Metcalf over here looking like Keyshawn Johnson saying, "Just give me the dang ball."
dude
And then
looking like Donkey Kong out there with with that 6-pack abs. Like he's freaking ripped. I don't know how that happens.
oh yeah, DK Metcalf is. Oh yeah, he is jacked. but I'm gonna say for Sam Darnold, I think Seattle's looking to draft a wide receiver because there's going to be a couple of them down close to where they are. So I think that was kind of a value thing in getting rid of DK Metcalf to kind of save money off of that. However, Jackson Smith and Jigba now becomes a number one. So I think this might change things in that regard. On top of that, they're going to have to draft a wide receiver that is right for Darnold.
But what is right for Donald?
Well, only time will tell.
I mean, didn't he have Justin Jefferson last season and Jordan Addison?
Oh yeah, Jettas and Addison were kind of the right receivers, but they're talented. They got to get another talented wideout and really harness the potential that Jackson Smith and Jigba had when they drafted him. Is Darnold going to be the best quarterback to get absolutely that out of them? And forever. There is absolutely nobody in this year's quarterback draft class that is him. That is the guy that will be able to do that. At least at the first round quality. You might be able to snag a diamond in the rough maybe day 2, maybe get him for a little bit less, but sometimes that diamond in the rough is more like a turd in the dirt.
That's probably the nastiest thing I've ever heard Spanish say out of his mouth in the history of Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast. You heard it here first.
But you're catching the point I'm trying to make. Is sometimes you think you struck gold, and you realize that it's just a plain old rock.
Okay, let's speed up a little bit.
Hassan Reddick to the Bucks. I think this is fine. This is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. I
shrugged my shoulders. I'm just like, okay, whatever. Let's move on.
And more to the Titans. This is fine.
All right.
I think it shores up whoever is the quarterback, but it's more so a matter of who they get at quarterback. Isaiah Rodgers to the Vikings. This might be better than what it looks. Especially if he finds a way to play in that Brian Flores scheme very well as a corner.
Yep.
It works out. Justin Fields to the Jets. No. That one for me is a no.
Dude, he's gonna look like Sam Darnold, like when he got drafted, is what's gonna happen. They're not gonna improve the line. They're just gonna be all flashy and shit. And then Aaron Glenn's gonna have all these questions at the beginning of the season, being like, "What are you doing? Like, how are you gonna improve on this?" And then nothing's gonna happen. It's just gonna be the same old Jets the whole way. Anyways, let's keep going.
Justin Fields is a running quarterback, and yeah, have running quarterbacks been able to thrive in the NFL? Yes. But what has Lamar done well, or at least gotten better at that Justin Fields hasn't? Throwing the football. If Justin Fields can show that he can throw the football, especially because they do have a good number one in Garrett Wilson, if he can do that, there may be something. But there's too much dependency on that.
Yeah.
Josh Sweat to the Cardinals. I do like the reunion with Jonathan Gannon. Yeah, this is fine.
I didn't even
Dante
think about
Jackson.
that.
Yep. Jonathan Gannon was the former DC of the Eagles, and Josh Sweat was there. Makes sense.
There you go. Deontay Jackson to the Chargers.
Dante Jackson to the Chargers. Nah, this is fine. Travarius Ward to the Colts.
All right.
I think this is an impact move.
I think he's the next Stephon Gilmore of the league. He's just gonna be that guy that's just reliable.
Yeah, I like the move enough.
I think as a former Chiefs player, I think it's good for him.
Yeah, does it really help what honestly the Colts need to do, which is kind of abandon ship with Anthony Richardson? No. But are they really looking to abandon ship with Anthony Richardson? No. I think that the Colts are going to stay a hot mess until they do. Now, Zach Wilson to Miami. This is them basically cracking open the emergency glass and getting a quarterback that can yeet a ball deep for Tyreek Hill should Tua Tagovailoa get hurt.
Honestly,
this is all this is.
Honestly, it's whatever happens when Tua decides to pull a Ralph and launch himself out the window and break the glass, rather than rather than the Miami Dolphins being like, okay, we gotta break the glass. They're just like, okay, well, we're just gonna wait for Tua to decide to go head first and be an idiot like years past, where he had learned nothing.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically all this is Zach Wilson just saying, yeah.
He's like, all right, I backed up for Rodgers for a year. Let's see how bad it is with Tua. Shit! I have Tyreek Hill and a beat up, what? Who? No, not Devontae Smith, but they had,
Jalen Waddle. He was the other Bama receiver.
Waddle.
It was the cheetah and the penguin.
Yep. And then Ray Greenlaw to the Tuanua
Hufanga to Denver. I love this.
I think that's a good signing for the Broncos. They need some
defense.
I
think Denver getting them both is good.
Yeah, they really needed the defensive help with that because it's been kind of lackluster since they traded away.
They are going to be scary, especially if they get another wide receiver in Denver to support Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
And keep Cortland Sutton on top of that. They get another running back. They're probably, I think, going to be the favorites to get Ashton Jonty early.
Or they're going to be free agent.
Oh yeah, there's always something there.
Yeah.
Or I think Scatabo will be an interesting one to go there too. But I think Jonty is probably going to be the favorite to go there.
Yeah.
And then Harold Landry to the Patriots. I think that's kind of good enough for government work. Nothing new to be added onto the bingo cards this week. Yay. And we now will move on to our stud and dud of the week. And Ruckus, what do you have?
All right, so I'll start with my dud, which we kind of explained earlier, but I think Myles Garrett deciding to sign with the Browns instead of just saying F it and getting out of that organization and going somewhere better, I think would have been better for the ratings of the NFL rather than staying with the Browns. Mainly because, yeah, he was like a loyal guy, but in this day and age, being loyal isn't always like the greatest aspect of it. Like, just because the Browns throw a bunch of money at you just to stay doesn't mean that you're going to be productive. And even then, when he was like, I want to be on a very competitive team that actually has ambitions of winning a championship, it's harder to do that because those teams that are trying to win championships are having to deal with like high cap issues with the players they currently have. And the only way to bring in new talent usually is going with a cheaper deal just so that you could play and go and win Super Bowls. But I don't know if Myles Garrett really had that mentality going in thinking that he could be a Super Bowl contender. So I guess he went the safe route, but I don't think that was a good idea for him. And the ordeal that he went through just for him to get $40 million per year is stupid. I think his experience could have been used elsewhere.
Oh yeah, I think I fully agree with you on that.
The stud that I do have though is a rookie for the Kansas City Royals in Jack Leone. He's hitting dingers as a rookie in spring training, and the one that I'm talking about was hit 444 feet. I have a strong feeling that this man could be he could be called up later in the summer, maybe, but a lot of reporters are saying he's probably going to be called up in September just to be safe, but the man's raking early and he's kicking ass and taking names. I feel like he could be a big help for the Royals going forward. And I'm curious to see if he actually starts pitching, because this guy was a two-way player when he was drafted, but maybe he just sticks to the offensive side of things rather than the pitching side. Spennis, what you got?
Yep. All right, my stud this week is honestly The Tonight Show and Jimmy Fallon for bringing the St. John's men's basketball team and Rick Pitino onto the set and doing a little cover of the Soon May the Wellerman sea shanty with them, and honestly it turned out surprisingly good. Like, Pitino comes in late in the thing, but they actually were able to do some, and that's what I've always liked about Jimmy Fallon, is that if there's something going on with things in that regard, he will at least let them in on the he'll let him in. Like, he'll let him in and he gets him in, and they do extremely well with just the enjoyment of it. Like, it becomes more fun than anything else.
Yeah.
And I think I also saw that the 49ers, my dud here is that they are actually cutting the only man who we have seen block and knock down Trent Williams. They're cutting Kyle Juszczyk. The 9-time Pro Bowl fullback, Kyle Juszczyk.
It kind of makes sense, though, because they're probably trying to retool their
become a free agent. It wouldn't surprise me either, but the problem is Juszczyk is the dude is really good. Like, he's good, but he's also really strong. Like, this guy is strong.
I feel like he was less injury prone than most of the running backs that the 49ers had, too. Because, like, you went through, like, at least 3 or 4 of those guys, and then you had this guy that was, like, a no-name that people tried to poach off in free agency and fantasy football late in the season.
Yeah, he played for the Harvard Crimson as a college guy, and then he was primarily in Baltimore for a while. And then Juszczyk just basically just got really, really strong. I mean, he's 33. He's 33 as a fullback. So, yeah, he's an aging fullback. I think he could become a future Hall of Famer. But, man, he hits. Like, he will block. He will block. He will catch. And I think that just he and his wife there in San Francisco were such a staple. Like, they were such a staple. Like, it was just such a staple for that community there.
Yeah.
And of course, I think there was notably stuff in the receiver documentary where the Kittles were also really good friends with the Juszczyks.
Yep, I remember that.
Oh, man. And that's a different thing for another go. And I think there's a lot of questions. Like, there's a lot of moves. There have been a lot of moves in this free agency that just make you go a little bit of like, what?
Yeah.
And then Shedeur Sanders also just plummeting down draft boards, as I expected.
We'll see what happens on draft night, but yeah.
Yep.
I'll be curious to see. I think Travis Hunter probably stays in the top 10 rather than anybody else, but we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, I think he'll stay put. I think he's definitely a top 10 pick. Like, he's definitely a top 10 pick. I think Cam Ward will go in the top 10, and Abdul Carter is definitely among the top like 3 or 4. But beyond that, I think it's anything goes. It's just a matter of, I think, where's the value and where's the need.
All right.
But on that note, this will do it for episode 137 of the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast. I'm Ruckus and The Menace.
And I am Ruckus, always calling Ruckus, and thank you for listening to our Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast, and also viewing for the first time for the second week in a row. We decided to do face cams. Anyways, thank you for enjoying this video. If you got this far, like our video. Also, subscribe if you haven't already. And also, look at our other content as well. I am Ruckus, always calling Ruckus.
And I'm Ruckus and The Menace.
And we'll see
Deuces,
you all
everybody.
in 138. Deuces.